And now, good mic work commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
It's a Saturday again. What's going on, guys? And welcome to your Winged Eagle Podcast for December 9th, 2023. Kind of a big one tonight because we have a lot going on. We have a lot to talk about, and we have a couple of big shows that go live in just a couple of hours. NXT Deadline and AEW Collision, both going head-to-head at 8 p.m. Eastern here. And there's a very good possibility that CM Punk might actually poke his head in to NXT Deadline because I guess he's in the same city where the pay-per-view is or whatever. And he made mention of NXT in his promo last night on Smackdown that he's opening up all of his options in terms of signing with Raw, Smackdown, or even NXT. So we might see Punk in an NXT environment tonight, which would be pretty cool. But we are going to talk a lot about CM Punk, of course, as been the case with the past, for the past year here on the podcast. CM Punk dominating the headlines and dominating the discussion and chatter here. That's going to remain the same today because he had a lot to say on SmackDown last night, a lot more than he had to say a week or so ago when he made his return on Monday Night Raw. This promo was a lot more detailed. He mentioned a lot of people, even talked about what his aspirations and plans are and what we can expect from him in the immediate future. So there's so much to kind of unpack and digest there, and there's actually something to talk about, where his return promo on Raw last week was just more like, oh, hi guys, I'm back. I'll be seeing you soon. This time he had much more to say in his promo and took a little shot at AEW as well, which the troops in attendance didn't get, but the fans online and at home sure as hell did. And it was a pretty good promo, much better promo than what he cut on Raw a couple of weeks ago. So we'll talk about Punk and what now his plans might be looking like heading into 2024. It's kind of different than what I thought they were going to do. I thought I had a different show set up for Rollins and Punk, but turns out it might actually be WrestleMania. And I cannot even get over the visual of last night. I had to stick it on the thumbnail. Cody Rhodes and CM Punk backstage shaking hands. It's just still really surreal for a fan like me, like you guys, to see CM Punk back in this WWE environment. It would have been crazy enough had he not even returned to wrestling in AEW and just come back now. That would be wild enough. But given how he returned to wrestling in another company and it went to shit, now he's back in WWE, still hard to get used to that. You know what I mean? You guys feeling the same way? But every time I see Punk on WWE TV right now, I'm just like, I cannot believe I'm looking at this. I cannot believe I'm looking at this. It's wild, man. It's wild. So we're going to talk about CM Punk, his promo last night on SmackDown. We're also going to talk about CM Punk's WrestleMania plans and even his SummerSlam plans in 2024. We're going to talk about what Seth Rollins had to say about CM Punk in an interview that he did with SI Media. And we'll talk about Punk's future in WWE in terms of where he's going to sign with. He will be appearing on Raw on Monday to make his exact decision. So they're not going to be dragging their feet on this. He will decide Monday who he's going to sign with. And I think we all know he's going to sign with Monday Night Raw. He would not say, I'm going to make my decision on Raw and then come to SmackDown. He's going to make his decision to be on Raw. And that might be where he kicks off things with Seth Rollins. We're also going to talk about Andrade El Idolo's future in AEW, and could he potentially be heading back to WWE? We also want to wish his wife Charlotte well, as she may have suffered an injury last night. Didn't see any updates on Charlotte today, but took a nasty spill off the top rope. Might have hurt her knee. Wishing the queen the best. We're going to talk about Bryan Danielson and some of his backstage AEW duties. We're going to talk about AEW releasing Kevin Sullivan, not that one, a different one that has sparked a little bit of internal negativity in the company, and Tony Khan receiving a little bit of backlash from that. We're going to talk about Okata returning to the company that he hates, TNA. He's going to be showing up there on their new look Snake Eyes show in January. Yeet is back. So after a 1-week absence, Jey Uso has been given the right to use Yeet again. That's exciting. We'll talk about that. WWE also has ended their home video production in the UK, and it's likely that is going to be worldwide in 2024. So we'll talk about that end of an era. We'll talk about WWE's December taping schedule and how Triple H might have been taking a little bit of my advice. And we're also going to talk about last night's SmackDown, tribute to the troops, CM Punk, the U.S. title contender tournament, the Punk Cody stuff, the Punk Kevin Owens stuff, and all of that jazz. We'll talk about last night's SmackDown, and we'll circle back and talk a little bit about this week's Dynamite, which was headlined by Adam Copeland versus Christian for the TNT title. That honestly, it was a match that I was looking so forward to, because I've really felt like Adam Copeland is kind of now getting his footing in AEW. After it just didn't feel like it was landing right or something. I've really been enjoying the stuff that him and Christian have been doing. However, the finish in that match in the main event of Dynamite did not do it for me. But there was still other interesting things on Dynamite, like some more clues as to who the devil might be, and them really opening up the door for it to be anyone here. I liked the Hangman Page, MJF, and Swerve stuff as well. A lot of Continental Classic matches to get into. We'll update you guys on the standings of that. And we had some, I think, one match last night on Rampage with Danielson defeating Garcia. And we got a big collision on tap for tonight that was taped on Tuesday along with Rampage. So they taped Tuesday and they taped Rampage and Collision the day before Dynamite, which had to have been weird, but that's what they did, I guess, this week. So that's kind of what's on the menu today. So I want to welcome you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I don't think I've been live since Monday. Just been a really busy week, really busy time of the year right now for me. I feel like I'm always saying that. There used to be a time where I had quiet spots in the year, but lately I've been busy every damn month. So thank you to you guys for always hanging in there, being patient, and supporting the channel. Please do so, by the way, by smashing that thumbs up button. Would love to get more than 31 likes on that thing. And if you're not a subscriber, please become one. We just passed 40,000 subscribers a couple of days ago. Now we are on the road to 50,000, which should take us probably about a year. So let's try to get to 50,000 as quickly as possible. Please subscribe if you'd like to become a channel member. You can do that too. Info is in the description. And of course, so is a link to Patreon, where you guys are finding some exclusive, unedited, uncut reactions and other little projects that I'm doing. Also, the second channel is getting moving there, starting to feed some content in there. We have a few different playlists now that are going to be being filled. We've got the reactions that I'm taking that we record on Sunday nights here, uploading those and editing them for second channel content. I'm also just taking out little snippets from my podcast, not mic drops, just like 1 or 2 minute little clips of something interesting or funny I might say, chucking those on there. And we're even doing some remastered reviews, taking some old audio reviews that may be like 2 to 5 years old and remastering them in 4K visuals and footage and all of that, and uploading those on the second channel as well. So please check out Good Mic Work too. Got fun content over there in between when you're seeing me here doing live stuff. So anyway, we got that going on as well. Please support on all platforms, and I would be appreciative of that. You can also follow me over on the Twitters at Good Mic Work. Let me do some shout outs here and hellos to everyone in the chat and let you guys know what's going to be going on this week. Good to see channel members like Tatanani, and we got Amato, my boy, Amato Gonzalez. Hey, Greg, another 50-hour work week. Yikes. I did listen to the 07 Rumble re-upload. That's on the second channel. I was at that show, won tickets the day before from Hillbilly Jim at a Royal Rumble Access. That's awesome. Met Kennedy and Mickey James. Right on. Yeah, Kennedy had a big match on that show against Batista. Good to see you as always, my friend. We have Victor Colon in the house, Michael Cuomo, JJ Leg, Isaac, the Juliet, Max Pokebra, Luke McAllister, Zane G, and Ken Webb rounding out the channel members. Let's hit these supers real quick. I want to thank Clone Force for the $5. What's up, dude? I'm calling it right now. Rollins will probably go heel in Punk feud since CM Punk will be cheered, and they will probably go the Jericho and HBK 2008 route. Yeah, maybe. It's going to be weird with Rollins and Punk. I have so many things to say about this, so just hang tight on the Rollins and Punk stuff, because based on what they definitely laid some foundation for what we might see at WrestleMania last night on SmackDown. So we'll see how far that takes us into the future. But that whole situation is going to be interesting, especially with what Rollins said about CM Punk in that podcast interview. Also, Luke McAllister, our friend and channel member, is here with 10. Appreciate that, my friend. Hey, Greg, got my tickets for All In next year. Can't wait for that show. And WrestleMania 40 appears to be very promising, with potentially Rollins versus Punk and Reigns versus Rhodes. It could be one for the ages. And that's kind of what it looked like they set up last night with that conversation between CM Punk and Cody Rhodes. Both of them intend on finishing their story, which means both of them need to win the Royal Rumble. So what I'm hoping for now is a CM Punk and Cody Rhodes Royal Rumble final. And with Cody eliminating him. I don't want to try to do the Cody Gunther thing again. Now that Punk is here, it kind of changes things up I would have Cody and Punk be the final two. I think that's what you have to do there. And I would have Cody win, and I would have Punk go to WrestleMania to main event night 1 with Rollins and lose, and I would have Cody go to WrestleMania to main event night 2 and win against Roman Reigns. So that's where I would have that going, but we'll talk more about that as we get rolling through here. Also good to see Mike Rouse, Joe Nell. We got Denny Downbad, Stephen Harris. We have Jeffrey in the house. We have Ben Espinoza is here as well. Nicola up in here. Ronnie Matthews, Big J, Andy Linnell, Jay Lambo, JL. Good to see anybody else chiming in today. Welcome. Glad you're here, and happy Saturday to everybody. Well, let's get into some wrestling news. Here's going to be the menu. We're going to start with wrestling news, and then we're going to get into Smackdown. We'll finish up with Dynamite and a little preview for tonight's Collision, but I definitely want to talk about some wrestling news first and what you guys can expect from me in the next couple of days. Big fun watch-along planned for tomorrow night. The link is already up. 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, WWE Armageddon 2002. The end is here. So after a 1-year absence in Armageddon being Vengeance in 01 due to the 9/11 attacks, Armageddon is back in 2002, and it's still crazy to see Shawn Michaels with the big gold WCW belt. Only held it for, 3.5 weeks in his entire career, only had it for a snippet of time, a sliver of time in his career, but I had to use it as my thumbnail because that's another just surreal image to see. Shawn with that belt. Just Shawn with that belt is just weird to me. It's always been weird. And he defended and lost to Triple H in that fantastic main event at Armageddon 2002. We're going to be watching that tomorrow night. So join us for a fun Sunday watch along. Unfortunately, for CM Punk's big announcement on Monday night as to where he's going to sign with, and we know it's going to be Raw, no Raw review planned. I've got a big family dinner that night, so I will be busy. If Raw is nuts and we get a big CM Punk bombshell, or if we get a title change or a cash in or something bonkers, I'll be up here later that night or even maybe Tuesday morning to just at least talk about it. But no full-blown review planned for Monday as of now, but I'll have some stuff up midweek instead as we roll into the holiday season here. So keep an eye out on the channel and remind yourself tomorrow to join us for Armageddon 2002. It should be a blast. So just want to let you guys know about that as well. Why don't we start off with our wrestling news? And I definitely want to start off with CM Punk related stuff. Now, we're going to get into his promo on SmackDown in a couple of minutes, but first, we're going to talk about what Seth Rollins had to say about him. Now, I did not bother writing down a bunch of transcripts here, but he was interviewed on the SI Media podcast a couple of days ago, and he was asked about CM Punk. And Rollins, while it definitely felt clear that he was working, for sure, because Rollins and Punk are probably headed for a showdown. I kind of thought it would be a Royal Rumble thing, Rollins versus Punk, and maybe Punk loses, but then costs Rollins the belt in a cash-in situation, and then you can still do Rollins and Punk at Mania, maybe in a Hell in a Cell or something like that. But based on how they structured everything last night on SmackDown, sounds like Punk's goal is to main event a WrestleMania. That's what he wants to do. Now that there's 2 nights of WrestleMania, that opens up the door for a lot more people being able to main event WrestleMania. So if that's going to be Punk's goal, if that's what was talked about in the negotiations coming in with Triple H, that he'll main event a WrestleMania, we don't know. But now it seems like Punk and Rollins seems more likely for WrestleMania than the Royal Rumble, and it seems likely that Punk is actually going to be in the Royal Rumble itself. Now, Rollins was interviewed on the podcast, like I said, and he was asked about CM Punk, and he brought up a number of things. He talked about how Punk, it's no secret that he doesn't like Punk. He didn't appreciate the way Punk talked about him, the things he said about him, the things he said about the company that he works for, the people that work there, the way he dragged the company's name through the mud and put down and shit on and crapped on a whole bunch of great people that Seth considers friends and peers, and that's what Seth has trouble getting over, and he doesn't appreciate. He says CM Punk is a hypocrite, and he's selfish, and I can definitely understand, the hypocrite sentiments in the audience there, because this is a guy, that's what was so odd about his Monday Bright Night Raw promo after Survivor Series, this I'm home shit. What do you mean you're home? You're home, you've made it clear that WWE is not your home. You fucking burned the house down when you left. You have been known and have a reputation for not letting go of grudges. This is a man that doesn't even talk to his own parents and brother. So it's like going back to his parents' house and saying, "Oh, I'm home." What do you mean you're home? You fucking hate us. So it was weird. And a lot of fans were kind of pointing out that how can you go out there and say, I'm back, I'm home, when really the only reason you're home at all is because the circumstances that happened in your last job, and this is your only option now. So baby, you're not home, you're just crawling back home, is the way some people looked at it. And I think that's a fair enough criticism. But at the same time, you're CM Punk, you're going to capitalize and take advantage of the value that your name carries and how a wrestling company, even if they've had a checkered past with you, if you're going to bring in a ton of business and a ton of interest, you got to consider doing business. And I think that's really, at the end of the day, what this comes down to. If CM Punk never came back to WWE and his name did not generate the buzz that it does online, on social media, on headlines, if his name's not chanted in every arena across the country for 8 years during his absence and nobody fucking cares about him and he's Curtis Axel, then yeah, you don't bring him back in. But this is CM Punk, and I've talked about this intangible with him a lot lately. It's hard to really put your finger on it. It's not like a Bret Hart connection with his fans. His was different, but CM Punk definitely has something. There's something about him, his name, his aura, his voice, his face, something about him that just really sparks a lot of interest. And if CM Punk main events of WrestleMania, I was on record just a couple of weeks ago saying, if I'm Triple H, I'm not doing that. I'm not taking a WrestleMania payday away from another star who's been here, putting his work in, been here for a decade plus or whatever, working hard while this guy's been at home trashing the company. Now he's going to come in and take your payday away from you. That's the type of stuff I would think that could goof up your morale a little bit behind the scenes. But then again, business is business. And sometimes that's just the reality of it. It's not about what you deserve. It's about what's, better for the industry as a whole. And, if that means that CM Punk has got a main event of WrestleMania, I'm sure a lot of talent, even though they might not like it, might have to understand it. You know what I mean? So I still don't know how I feel about Rollins potentially main eventing a WrestleMania, but hey, it's night one. It's not night two. And I would think that Punk would have to lose to Seth Rollins, coming back in after all that time, coming in and beating, one of their top guys of the last decade, beating him like that. I think that's got to be a Rollins victory all the way. And I think Rollins might even know that, which is why, he's being so brash in these comments. He's not holding back at all. I'll tell you what, man, if CM Punk does have some sort of behavior clause in his contract, Seth Rollins is testing the shit out of it with these comments, because among the normal things that he said about Punk, being a hypocrite, being selfish, the locker room doesn't like him, we don't appreciate what he said about us, that type of thing, he brought up Colt Cabana, which really seems to be a sore topic of conversation for CM Punk. Colt Cabana's name being brought up is the reason he's standing in a WWE ring right now. I mean, at least it feels that way, because it was the Colt Cabana comment at the scrum that just ignited the flame of Punk going off. Now, maybe he would have done that anyway. There was word and reports that he had planned to say these things about the Elite and Hangman in that scrum, but I felt like that Cabana comment, and then him started freaking out about Scott Colton shares a bank account with his mom, he's a piece of shit. It just really feels like that is a trigger for him. And if it is, maybe Rollins is testing that. Hey, if Triple H told him, hey, any fucking outburst, any stupid shit you do, you're gone. But then again, how would that work? Triple H also has to have some fair amount of trust in CM Punk. I mean, if this is a guy that you're going to put in the main event of WrestleMania, you cannot afford to have something catastrophic happen before that match takes place, and you can't deliver on a WrestleMania main event. Sure, you can replace him, and I'm sure everything will be fine. The show will go off without a hitch, that type of thing. But do you really want something catastrophic like that happened at All In to happen here at WrestleMania? I don't think Triple H is going to let that happen, but it's not maybe as easy as him telling CM Punk, hey, one misstep and you're out of here. What if you're 1 week away from WrestleMania? What if WrestleMania is 1 week out? You just spent the last 3 months building CM Punk and Rollins or CM Punk and whoever, and then Punk does something to violate that behavior contract. Do you can him 1 week before WrestleMania? So in a lot of ways, WWE's in the driver's seat here. Punk is not going to be able to be Punk, but you get close enough to a show, shit, anything that can happen. But like I've said with Punk for weeks now, his legacy's on the line. His legacy is on the line. This is make or break for him. He has to behave, do business, and finish up his career the right way, or he's going to forever be remembered as wasted potential. And this is a guy that had his potential, won world championships and main evented shows and made a huge career for himself, but arguably could have been even better had he not had these, personality issues that he has. So with Rollins, kind of testing this in these interviews, bringing up Colt Cabana, we don't know. We don't know what's going on with Punk and Rollins. I'm sure there has now been communication with the two of them. I mean, when Rollins was losing his mind at Survivor Series about Punk, he was working. He was being held back by Michael Cole. If Michael Cole is preventing you from doing something, you're working. I'm sorry. So Rollins was very angry, and it looks like he was going to be working with Punk out of the gate. So if that's the case, I would hope, and again, I have no idea, juicy speculation, it's all we do here, I would think that Punk and Rollins are exchanging texts and things like that. All right, I'm going to do this interview. I'm going to mention Colt Cabana. We're going to make this as real as possible. And I think Punk, who's being on his best behavior, Hulk Hogan in 2002 level behavior right now, is probably texting back, right on, go for it, say whatever you want. And that might be what it's about, communication. Because when you look back at AEW and his time there, look at the shit that Eddie Kingston said to him in those promos, and what Hangman Page said pissed him off. That's what was so unforgivable was the workers' rights thing, after a hell of a lot worse was said to him in previous promos. But it might just be about communication. That's all it comes down to. As long as I know and we're on the same page with this, then it can work. But I'm hoping, and I feel like it's necessary for Punk and Rollins to be on that same page if a WrestleMania match between the two of them is planned anyway. You can't just, unless Triple H has got a little bit of that Vince in him, where he likes to see, because he feels like it might make a better story if he does have a little bit of reality sewn into the animosity there. Vince liked that with his guys. Maybe there's a little bit of Triple H that likes that too. I just think that you're playing with fire with someone like Punk. And I think if Rollins and Punk are working a program, pretty much everything that is done in the build is agreed upon, understood, and communicated upon between the parties. That's my take. That's my belief. Now, I could be wrong on that, but, when you hear Rollins, everything he said in the interview, while it was harsh, and he was really unloading on Punk a lot, it was all within the boundaries of what we all know about Punk and what has been said before. Nothing has been too out there. Nobody's brought up his mom and dad or anything like that. Nobody's getting too personal. But that Colt Cabana thing was something that raised my people's eyebrow, because when he said that, I'm like, that Punk really seems to hate Colt Cabana. He really does. So you would think if it's brought up that he's got to be okay with it. And he must have been, because otherwise I don't know what other explanation you would have. But Rollins is the one now that's put 10 plus years in the company. He's the veteran there. Punk is coming into his house now. Unlike before, when the Shield debuted from NXT, that was largely Punk's house. Now it's Rollins' house, and he's been the guy there. And as somebody that just believes, that stands on principle, like myself, when Punk and Rollins do face for the first time, Rollins absolutely does have to beat him. There cannot be another way, unless you do some crazy swerve, Punk turns heel, massive cheating, Money in the Bank cash in, tied in, something like that, then anything is possible. But if these guys are going to have a match and somebody has to win and somebody has to lose, Punk has got to go down here. And Punk being the best behavior type of guy, I wouldn't even be surprised if Punk is offering to do the job. You know what I mean? Because he's just happy to get back in there, making some money, finish up his career. But who cares about a loss at this point in your 44-year-old life? Punk has had a great career, and I think Punk has got a lot of good matches this year, including a big showdown with Roman Reigns at SummerSlam, which we'll talk about later, as Punk did bring up the bloodline and talked about how he was the OG Paul Heyman guy. So I think what WWE did with CM Punk and Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam in 2013, you just do the same thing with Roman and Punk in 2024. So that can be a lot of fun. So we will be talking more about Punk in a minute, because we have to talk about his SmackDown promo. But Rollins and his comments on Punk, they were not surprising and surprising at the same time. But my gut instinct is everything here is just a work, and Punk and Rollins are setting up their program, which is fine. But still crazy to hear somebody mention Colt Cabana and Punk not fly off the fucking rails. You know what I mean? Let's talk more about potential WWE news. Andrade, El Idolo, might be heading back to the company. There's been some rumblings about that. Now, nobody really knows what's going on with him. Meltzer this week in the Observer Radio mentioned that his belief is that Andrade's contract is expiring soon. Andrade has been telling people that his contract is up in April. Now, none of that makes a ton of sense to me, because I believe he made his debut in June of 2021. So if it's a 3-year deal, he's talking at least June. But If it's less than a 3-year deal, and maybe it's a 2-year deal, and then Tony Khan tacked on extra time when Andrade was out, maybe that timeline does add up. So June 2021, signing a 3-year deal, that would definitely put him up in 2024. The April thing seems a little bit early. I'm not sure how that would work unless he signed an 18-month deal. Or I'm sorry, maybe a 21-month deal or something like that. Or he only signed a 2-year deal and then time was added when he was out. We really don't know, but he feels like he's going to leave AEW. I would if I was him. It's like the two massive back-to-back fumbles here. It's like neither one of these teams can get, can score with this guy. WWE massively fumbled him because, primarily Vince was in charge and didn't know how to use him. And then he got released and then AEW picked up the ball and then they fucking dropped it and didn't know what to do with him either. And this guy is just a spectacular talent. And now, he's married to Charlotte, don't forget. If I'm in Andrade's shoes, I want to get back to WWE as soon as possible because Triple H was running NXT when Andrade was really at the top of his game. And I think Andrade would love to go back and work for Triple H. And I just think he's going to be going back. I hope that he does. I don't need Andrade in AEW. The CJ Perry thing is doing nothing for me. They have no chemistry whatsoever. And there's nothing that he's doing in AEW that I really give a shit about at this point. And I think it would be fun if he went back to WWE. Now, he's also going to be returning to CMLL on December 15th as well. So he's already made it known that he's going to go back there, maybe in between deciding which North American promotion he's going to sign with. But if Andrade is ever a free agent, and that is actually true, and in a couple of months, he is going to be free and clear contractually to sign with anybody he wants. Is there anybody in this chat right now that thinks he's going to be sticking around in AEW, that's going to be the better place for him based on how they've used him since they've had him and the fact that his wife is working for a completely different company? And when you think about it, it's completely unrelated, but think about in AEW, I can think of 4 off the top of my head, 4 wrestlers whose significant others are in WWE who just aren't doing a lot. Andrade, Keith Lee, Malachi Black, Buddy Matthews. All of them, spouses or girlfriends or significant others in WWE. House of Black, while I like the presentation and the faction, Malachi's wrestled 1 singles match in a year in that company. Brody King's actually doing pretty well in the Continental Classic right now, and Matthews delivers every time he's in the ring. But nobody's getting pushed, nobody's getting elevated, nobody's doing anything. And maybe Tony Khan knows that too. All these people with wives in WWE, when their contracts are up, why are they going to stay here? If their wives aren't coming here, then what's their motivation to stay here now that Triple H is back in charge? He's going to lose all of them. All of them. The minute Malachi Black is able to bounce, he's bouncing. You know that 100%. But he might have a lot more time left on his deal than Andrade has on his. So Andrade, his 3 years in the company is going to be up. And again, we don't know the details. This is just a speculation. But if Tony Khan has been thinking about adding time to his contract for whatever time he missed, if you're Tony Khan, why would you do that? Unless it's just some personal belief that you finish out your contract. Tony Khan is not going to release people. He's just going to let them finish out their work. Maybe that's something he believes in. Maybe that's a philosophy that he believes in. And that's not a bad one, to be honest. But if you know somebody's leaving, why are you going to continue to keep them around there and pay them when you know they're just going to leave anyway? I feel like there's got to be some concessions, and maybe Tony Khan is like, look, I know you're leaving, so just go. Just go. What's the difference at this point, And again, Andrade and, you got to think about these people who have significant others. It's got to be really difficult to maintain a relationship when you're working and on 2 different separate travel schedules. At least in WWE, they try to keep the couples on the same brand so at least they can, be together. And I don't know what kind of strain that has on a relationship. I know if I only saw Elizabeth 3 or 4 times a month, it would be really hard. So I think that it's better for people to work together, especially when you're married. If you're just dating somebody, who knows? It might not work out. But if you're married, you're together, you have kids even or whatever, it's probably best for everybody's mental health just to be together. So I think it would be great if Andrade is back and, we might see Andrade in a wrestling match at SummerSlam next year. I really, really hope we do. That's one jump back to WWE that I really hope happens is Andrade, because I feel like a lot like, Santos Escobar, Triple H, will do a good job showcasing his Latino talent. I just trust him with that a lot more than I ever did Vince. So Andrade coming back to WWE, Greg is in favor of it. And like I said earlier, best wishes out to Charlotte, who did take a stumble last night. Saw the replay on Smackdown. They didn't show it on TV, I don't think, but she kind of fell off the ropes, wrenched her leg, might have fucked her knee up. Hopefully nothing is torn. No ligaments, ACL type of stuff that would keep her out a year. Don't really know. And again, if anybody has any word on Charlotte, let me know. I didn't see anything as I was making my notes today, but best of luck to her and Andrade and whatever their futures may be. Let me get to my next thing, but let me just get back over here to the chat and refresh it so I can see what's going on. I'll knock out these super chats here in just a minute. Got a couple more coming in from our friends Zane and Luigi. I'll hit those in just a second. I want to talk a little bit about Bryan Danielson as well. So Bryan Danielson, he's been a big topic of conversation lately as well, because it was revealed that he was a member of the disciplinary committee that made the decision to terminate CM Punk's contract. Now, that was a big enough story. And then it's also been revealed that Danielson has some backstage duties. Tony Khan really trusts Bryan Danielson. And to me, that's not a weakness. You know, if Tony Khan's going to be placing his trust in people and he's finally going to be delegating out stuff, Danielson is probably one of the better options you could ask for, especially if you're going to have somebody in an in-ring capacity in these roles. And you might hear a lot of fans say, wrestlers shouldn't be in these roles. Well, if you say that, you have no fucking clue about history, because there's never been a territory or a wrestling promotion, listen to this, ever, that has not had in-ring talent in backstage roles. It's never not been a thing. So if you think Danielson shouldn't be in a position like that, you just don't know what you're talking about. Plain and simple. So Danielson, though, is a super down-to-earth guy who's widely respected by his peers and fans inside and outside of the ring. Chill, laid back, fair. You know, without knowing him too personally, I feel like I would trust Danielson to make difficult decisions. This is a guy who had to be a part of a decision-making process that released one of his friends. Him and Punk are enemies, you know, but Danielson has a job to do. And apparently one of his other new jobs is to monitor the social media activity of AEW talent. And he has been given the duty and responsibility of handing out fines for people who get a little too saucy on social media. Apparently he handed one out to Santana not that long ago. And again, I don't feel like this is anything out of the ordinary. I feel like this would be a perfectly normal job for someone to have. You know, WWE has these very same kind of rules in place. It might be micromanaged a little bit different, but they don't want their talent acting like ass bags online either. AEW has had a lot of issues with the tweets and stuff like that. Some are works, some are not. But I think that's something else that Tony Khan needs to say, hey, you need to stop getting too emotional on Twitter, because in some of these instances, it makes the company look bad and it makes you look immature. It paints us in a bad light. It makes us look like we don't have our shit together, that the inmates are running the asylum. We've heard that phrase thrown around a lot lately in the last year regarding AEW and what's going on backstage. So Danielson is only going to help this. Granted, they probably need more than Danielson, you know, back there doing other things. And I think they do, but Danielson being one talent that's going to be in charge or have any sort of outside authority role is perfectly fine, because he is not, it's not like he's got a history of being an asshole. Go look at Danielson's Twitter feed. It's not filled with stupid shit. It's just stuff, just regular stuff. He's a normal person, you know, who probably is, you know, somebody who's older, more mature, and somebody Danielson's age and experience, you know, being able to maybe help coach and monitor some of these social media accounts of your 24-year-old and 25-year-old talent and whatnot. Let me just answer this text right here. Sorry. Sometimes when I'm doing a podcast, work has a question for me. So Danielson having this role, I think, is perfectly fine. I think that anybody who has a problem with this, that is the tribalistic anal bacteria that you guys are all suffering from and have contracted, that's making you say these things. There is nothing wrong with Danielson having any sort of authority role behind the scenes. This is a guy who now apparently says he wants to wrestle until he's 70, but we were all under the assumption that he was going to be wrapping things up within the next calendar year. Maybe that's what's going to be the case as a full-time in-ring wrestler, and maybe he just pops in and has occasional matches here and there, in which case he can continue his AEW behind-the-scenes duties, and Tony Khan really seems to latch onto him and probably does not want to lose him and hopes to maybe keep Danielson around in the long term as somebody who can be a locker room or behind-the-scenes leader, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So anything that's going on in AEW behind the scenes, the morale that might be a little sketchy right now, there's some negativity going on behind the scenes because of the next thing we're going to talk about, and anything else related to that, I don't think is going to fall on the shoulders of Danielson in terms of him being the one or the reason for a lot of this stuff. I don't really think he is the problem right now behind the scenes. I think he's there to try to help correct things and make things better behind the scenes and not to hinder or harm them. So I don't really think that's an issue. It might be some other stuff, like how this past week AEW released Kevin Sullivan. Not that one, not the Taskmaster, but Kevin Sullivan, who was the VP of post-production, and he's been there since the very beginning. And he's got his own team of production guys. He's well-liked. He's been there since the beginning. Everybody likes his work. And apparently he was just let go with no notice. This is some WWE shit. This is some stuff we hear from them. This is not something we normally hear from AEW, somebody just who's been there since the beginning, who's an OG, who's worked hard, who everybody likes and has high praise for. We've seen AEW production. They've got great production. There's nothing wrong with their production. They aren't rinky-dink or amateur looking at all. They are TV ready in terms of production. So why did they let him go? Apparently, according to Meltzer, he says the move was huge and blindsided many people. Mike Manzuri, who is the executive of AEW production and used to work in WWE, and that was a big hire for AEW, he's been put in charge of that, and apparently he was Kevin Sullivan's boss, and a lot of people didn't even know that he was Sullivan's boss. So the move was made because I guess the company is heading in a different direction in 2024, whatever the fuck that means. And many were, I guess in the company, many fans of Kevin Sullivan's were kind of upset that Tony Khan didn't step in and stop it and do anything about it, especially since Sullivan has been there for so long. So we don't know. This is just adding more fuel, I think, to the negativity backstage. But we've also talked in the last year about how Tony Khan, it really feels like he's wearing too many hats. He's booking all this TV. He's, signing the contracts. He owns other sports teams. He's pulled in so many different directions. You got to delegate some authority out. You can't be the head of every single department. No one man could do that. Not Vince, not Tony Khan, not nobody. You got to sleep. You have to eat. You have no choice. And there's just no way that he can handle all this stuff. So if he now is putting production in the hands of somebody else, somebody with lots of experience from an already successful entity in WWE, he has hired that person to oversee all that and handed that off to him. With Danielson, he's handed off some of the disciplinary stuff to him. People acting up on social media, it's your job to keep an eye on that and find them for it. So we can't talk out of both sides of our ass here. We can't say that Tony Khan is doing too much and he needs to delegate out some responsibilities. And then when he does that, we have a problem with that too. You got to make up your mind which one it is. So, I think Tony Khan delegating out responsibilities is a good thing. Naturally, that's going to lead to decisions made. And if they're bad, it's going to naturally result in backlash. And it feels like that's the case here. I feel bad for Kevin Sullivan. Never met the guy. I don't know anything about him, but it sounds like he was well liked and he's been there since day one. And even with AEW lately, on TV, they've been making mentions some of the wrestlers have about, restoring the vibe and the feel and the energy of the old AEW. Getting rid of your OG production, president there doesn't seem like a good move either, but we will see. Now, Conan, on his podcast this week, I like Conan. I think Disco Inferno is a shitbag, but Conan, I respect him, even though I don't always agree with him. He commented a lot this week on his podcast about QT Marshall and his situation backstage in AEW. And I'm curious if the QT stuff is maybe related or connected in any way to the Kevin Sullivan stuff, because when QT left or announced his departure, He did say that the company is going in a different direction and he feels like it's best that he does the same. And there must be some backstage vibe back there that isn't feeling right anymore and people are starting to leave. Now, Conan says that Tony Khan only listens to top guys, and a lot of those top guys don't have the best interest of the company at heart. The reason I can take Conan's opinion here seriously is because him and QT have an AAA relationship. QT's been doing work down there. Conan's one of the head guys, running AAA. So obviously they know each other, and QT might be feeding this information directly to Conan. So, and that fits. When you think about that, I could totally see Tony Khan being the type of guy who only listens to a few people. It reminds me of someone. It reminds me of someone who probably sits on his ass now, and I know he does because I've heard him do it, and has all sorts of judgment to pass on Tony Khan about his behavior and how he runs his wrestling company, when really at the end of the day, Tony Khan is just another Eric Bischoff, just not as bad. When it comes to promoters or people in charge only listening to top guys, the very top guy on that list is Eric. We had a brief little disconnection there, but I think we're okay. We're okay according to me. There we go. Did you guys have a little break there? I think we're all right. It told me we were disconnected for a quick second, but I don't even think they were. Or I don't even think we were. So anyway, with Tony Khan, and these little aspects of his personality or his behavior behind the scenes, if he's only listening to some top guys, I can totally see promoters being influenced like that. Vince McMahon was kind of the same way. There was a time there when WWE was really in the mud and WCW was kicking their ass, where I felt like Shawn Michaels could have done and said whatever he wanted to do. That he was bulletproof. He could do and say anything, whatever he wanted, Vince would do. And I still have had my suspicions ever since the Montreal Screwjob. And that year in 1997, when Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, the sunny days that led to the hair-pulling fight in Hartford, and Shawn left, unsafe working environment, I'm out of here, I'm going to WCW. It felt like that was going to happen. And then all of a sudden, he comes back and he's working as a special guest referee in a Bret Hart match at SummerSlam. And then they set up a program and actually work at Survivor Series. I'm like, how were they able to come back together and work together? And I'm wondering if Vince McMahon and Shawn Michaels had a conversation on the phone and Shawn was like, it's him or me. He goes or I go. And then Vince was like, well, you're younger and you got more years and mileage in your tank, and I can get more money and value out of you than Bret. And that's when Vince told Bret to leave. So even Vince has had a lot of influence. A lot of promoters do this. Eric Bischoff was one of the worst because it felt like the NWO and Nash and Hogan and Hall and everybody making the money and everybody with the private trailers and the coolers full of Miller Lite were the ones making all the decisions. Now Tony Khan might be listening to a couple of top guys as well. And if other talent sees that, it makes them frustrated because they know that a lot of the people that Tony Khan might be talking to, it might be coming from selfish intentions, people trying to better themselves before the company. And that's exactly the type of problems that hindered WCW. Is everybody was in it for themselves. Nobody was in it for the team. And it didn't feel like we had that vibe in AEW at the beginning. And it's starting to feel like we're hearing that stuff now. So hopefully, they can right that ship, because despite all this turmoil, AEW is still delivering quality television. Dynamite was good this week. Rampage looks good tonight. Full Gear was fucking fantastic. Wrestle Dream this year. Pay-per-views are still good. Yeah, it's like AEW is kind of like pizza and sex. Even when it's bad, it's still pretty good. So it could be worse in AEW, because regardless of all of these issues we're hearing about, they're still providing decent quality television, even though they've got booking issues and they've got problems with the women and exposure and representation for certain talent and all that stuff. There's a lot of that going on. Some of the booking decisions don't make sense. Some of the storylines don't make sense. But overall, if you're looking for a good quality, fun wrestling show to watch, they can deliver that on most nights. So it's not like they're, going out of business or anything like that. And no, the sky is not falling. They got some issues right now, but that's what happens in life and in business. Sometimes you have issues and you have problems you need to fix. That's where Tony Khan and AEW is right now, I believe. So hopefully some of the veterans there too, like the Danielsons, the Jerichos, the Copelands, the Christians, and everybody else can, help be there to shape that locker room and lead it the way it needs to be led. But who knows? Who knows? Sounds like there's not only possible morale issues with the talent, but maybe with actual employees as well. And you don't like to hear that. So all the best to AEW and all the shit they're going through right now. Speaking of companies that have had some problems throughout the years, TNA is about to rebrand back to TNA. So they went to Impact. They're going to relaunch as TNA at a taping on January 14th entitled Snake Eyes. Now, what's cool about this is that Okata has been signed to come in and make an appearance for this thing. And Okata has gone on record in the past a couple of times saying that he hates, with an H, with a capital H, Hates. He hates TNA. So he's talking about the TNA from years ago when he was there back in 2012 or whatever it was, 2011, maybe 2010. Don't even remember now. It's been a long time. Hated his time there and has had nothing but bad things to say about them ever since. And now he's going back. So that should be cool on TNA's new look relaunching here in January. We'll keep our eye on Okada. And if he does wind up coming to WWE, we talked about Okada last week and him potentially being a free agent next year. And with Okada, I want to see him in WWE. With Ospreay, I felt like AEW was the best spot for him, so I'm glad he signed there. But Okada's a different story. Okada, I feel like, would be a lot of fun in WWE under Triple H. So that's kind of where I'm hoping he goes. Speaking of WWE and more good news for them, Yeet is back. So after a 1-week absence, we saw this past Monday on Raw, they were doing like a highlight package showing what took place the previous week. And the Yeet t-shirt that Jey Uso was wearing was blurred. And it was video distorted, like Ric Flair's belt in 1991. So it made people wonder what that was about. And apparently WWE ran into some trademark issues with Yeet because a trademark had already been filed. So they couldn't use Yeet on TV. Jey Uso couldn't say it. Jey Uso couldn't wear the shirt. The crowd still chanted it. You still saw some signs in the crowd that said Yeet, but WWE made no mention of Yeet. Well, apparently that was a short-lived suspension there because Yeet is back. WWE, I guess, never filed to trademark the term, and it turned out that independent pro wrestler Casey Huffman filed the trademark for Yeet and Yeet Movement back in 2021. And I guess, according to the documents, the application is currently suspended and has been suspended since last month, 2 months ago. No, I'm sorry, October 2022. We're in 2023, aren't we? Yeah, so it's been suspended for over a year. So Huffman's trademark application for Yeet is now listed as a dead application, refused, dismissed, or invalidated. So that was just a temporary thing. It would have cracked me up if WWE had to suspend all marketing and production and merchandising of Yeet because some independent wrestler owned it. I was like, pay this girl whatever she needs to get it. Apparently, they've worked it all out. And next time we see Jey Uso, he should be yeeting again. That's really exciting. Here's some sad news. Here's some good news. WWE, Fightful Select had a report just a couple of hours ago about WWE's December taping schedule. Now, on Monday, I was talking about my 10-year-old pitch. I've been talking about this forever on the channel. My 10-year-old pitch of a December offseason in pro wrestling. Knowing very well that this cannot happen. TV rights deals will not allow this to happen, but I always thought it would have been cool if WWE just gave the talent the month of December off. December sucks for business. Send everybody home, be with their families, rest their bodies, home for the holidays, decompress, mental health, month just to kind of get yourself back and ready to resume your life. I just think that would go a long way. The talent, the production crew, everybody who works hard in WWE would probably really look forward to this time off every year. And apparently Triple H, now that he has been knighted the head of creative, he had said in a recent interview that he hopes for his talent to have more time at home with their families than the previous regime. And it looks like he might be making good on that. So talent that Fightful have spoken to said that WWE talent will have a full week off in most cases ahead of Christmas, and there are no events scheduled between December 19th and December 25th. The holiday tour picks back up on December 26th. So unfortunately, even though if you're home for the holidays, you do have to leave the very next day. But we've seen in recent years where WWE has ran live Christmas Raws. We've complained about that a couple of years ago, a few years ago, whenever they did that. I'm like, nobody's even going to be watching, and you're going to have the talent fly in, leave their families to just wrestle on this run-of-the-mill Raw with a Christmas tree brawl or whatever the fuck, the Christmas themed shit they do. And it was just so disheartening. I'm like, let these guys stay home with their families and stuff. So the fact that that is important to Triple H, I think, again, is another really good look for WWE in terms of like a negotiating tool, because AEW, their attractiveness is probably their schedule. And Tony Khan is the same way. He wants people to be able to spend time with their families. If you have a kid, he wants to give you ample time to be home for the birth of your son or your daughter, paternity leave and all that stuff. He wants to make sure that people in his company have good mental health, don't need any problems. Moxley asked for help. He gave him all the time he needed, that type of thing. And that's what you want to see from somebody in charge if you're a wrestler thinking about who to sign with. And if going back to WWE, yes, it might mean a bigger, longer, more grueling schedule, but they're not completely heartless over there. And if you need time off, or, you need to spend time with your family, or holidays are coming up, birthdays, it seems like it's important to Triple H to make sure the talent is free and has the time off to do that. We saw Sami Zayn get injured on Monday Night Raw this past Monday, which I thought was weird because they did the same thing with Kevin Owens 2 days before, hurting his hand or whatever. And I'm like, do these two guys ask off for time off together, or do they need to be somewhere? Apparently, Sami Zayn is the one that asked for some time off, and it was granted. So that's why they ran the injury deal with Sami on Monday. And he asked for time off, and they gave it to him, which is very awesome. So that's good stuff to hear, because it's always bothered me how WWE just really runs the talent into the ground. And nowadays, house show business is not important as it once was. That's how WWE made all their money in the 80s, was on the house show and the live events and the tickets and the gates and all of that. That's such a small part of their business now. It's not even really that important. So you can certainly cut down on that a little bit and make the schedule a little bit more manageable for the talent, which might in turn extend their careers a little bit if they're not breaking their fucking backs every damn night of the week. So that's good news for WWE and their talent. Really happy to read that story from Fightful Select today. Here's a bit of sad news. WWE, all that stuff, it's done. WWE is ending its home video production. They have ended their distribution deal in the UK, and it is believed that this is going to carry over to worldwide and here in the States by 2024 or in 2024. So we're at the very end of WWE producing any more physical media, which is not that big of a deal to me because I don't buy any new physical media. I have no interest in buying Survivor Series 2023, the DVD. I don't need that. I'm more interested and concerned in stuff from back in the day, my 70s, my 80s, my 90s wrestling collection, all of those pay-per-views. Luckily, I have them all. I mean, I got 7 copies of the clamshell WrestleMania 3 VHS with Hogan and Andrade. 7 copies of that. I love physical media. I love to collect it. I've got all WWE's DVDs that they released pretty much all the way up until around 2013 or 14. It's probably been about 8 to 10 years now since I've really bought new WWE DVDs. I haven't had really any interest in them. Bought all the old ones from back in the day, 2002 through 2012. I got just about everything, but I haven't had a whole lot more in the last 10 years. And then the VHS tapes, I still collect. I still have them all. I also, back in the day, every single WWE pay-per-view that I ordered off pay-per-view, I taped, complete with the Sunday Night Heat and everything else going on before and after the show. I transferred those VHS tapes to DVDs, and then about 2011 or 12 is when I started the process of digitalizing all of my DVDs. So every VHS tape, every DVD that's on that shelf back there is also stored on a hard drive, along with every Monday Night Raw, pay-per-view, Nitro, anything else that I recorded personally, which believe me, I recorded a lot, piles and piles of tapes, has all been digitalized to hard drives. So I have my own WWE network. If we lose internet connection forever, I can still watch almost any wrestling show that I want. And that's always been really important to me, is to have my own way of accessing the stuff. I don't want to rely on an online internet connection. And with everything moving to streaming, sure, you can download some of this, but again, it's not even in its original form. We go through this every single Sunday when we do watch-alongs. We have to watch the Peacock version, which is just filled with edits and music edits and blurs and bullshit and chunks taken out. It's a pain in the ass. I have everything in its original form, and I'm grateful for that. But it definitely is an end of an era, and this will probably be the last time I use a background like this as well, because I will probably move out of this house next year, most likely. We might stick around a couple more years, but probably less than 1 year left I have in this house. And when we move on to our next place, I'm probably going to have a much more simplified podcast setup with a background, just the championship belts, maybe more of a straight thing like I used to do back in my apartment with the kitchen behind me, something like that. But eventually I'll change, how this looks, and you might never see that damn WWE media again. So it's a sad day. I loved physical media as a kid, collecting tapes and collecting DVDs and all of that stuff. Well, not DVDs. DVDs didn't come out until I was an adult, but collecting tapes and watching home video and recording stuff off TV, that type of thing was all really fun to me. And it's funny how technology has really changed how we do that. And if everything is going to be relied on streaming, that means unless you're downloading it and saving, the file, you don't own any of this stuff. You have to rely on an internet connection. And I just don't like to do that. If I have to live out in the woods for a month, as long as I have a laptop battery power, I can watch anything I want to watch. So rest in peace, WWE home video. I tweeted a picture of my media shelf that day when the story came out, and sad state of affairs in WWE home video production land. Well, now it's time to talk about Smackdown and tribute for the troops last night and CM Punk's big promo. But first, let's cruise to the chat and answer some questions and hit these super chats that I have been ignoring for the past couple of minutes. I want to thank, Ohtani signed with the Dodgers. I'm kind of out of the loop in baseball, so I know he's a huge free agent, but I haven't been swept up in in his free agency the way the rest of the world has. I didn't really care where he landed, to be honest. So YouTube has really taken away sports interest from me. Like I follow it, I eyeball it, but not like I used to. I used to be hardcore in everything, and unfortunately, this second job made me care a lot less about baseball and football and basketball. Now I just look at the scores and watch the playoffs and call it a day. So you guys always have to keep me updated on who's going where and who's where, that type of thing. Who is here that I can say hi to? Let's see. I got you guys, Clone Force, Zach, good to see you. Titanium Titan. I'm trying to hit any new channel members that I see popping in here. Jay Carlos, when Punk was on WWE on Fox and did a promo challenge, Punk mentioned to someone, if you're going to say something in a promo, to just say it in regards of bringing up his MMA career never winning. Yeah. I don't know if that's a touchy subject for him or not. But again, it's like one of those things that WWE might not want to draw a lot of attention to. The fact that he got his ass kicked just by trying MMA and got humiliated pretty bad. Is that something you really want to keep mentioning? Because that just basically is, everybody knows this, but you're just literally admitting on TV that wrestling is staged fighting. You couldn't fight for real. You're only good at fake fighting stuff. I don't know if we really want to be bringing that up. So, but yeah, I don't think Punk would like to hear that very much. Anyway, Zane G, thank you for that $10. Good to see you, my friend. Hung out with Zane at WrestleMania this year. You met Honky Tonk Man at LA Comic-Con last Saturday. Asked him about the SummerSlam squash. He said he was totally against it. He was, huh? I'm sure. Well, by that point, he had held the title for so long. You would think he was lucky enough to even be a champion that long in that era with so many great wrestlers that, losing wouldn't be the biggest deal. But it took a lot to get that belt off of him. He balked at losing to Randy, too, on the main event in February. Part of the reason I think why Randy Savage won the title at WrestleMania 4 is because Honky didn't want to do the job to him for the IC. So his luck ran out, though, at SummerSlam. That's interesting that he said he was totally against it. You should have asked him how he feels about no longer being the longest running Intercontinental Champion. And you should also tell him that Gunther would whoop his ass if he saw him. What's up, Mab? Good to see you as well, channel members. Luigi Gaming, I want to thank you for that $2 earlier. If Tony adds time, he's becoming more like Vince. Not really. No. If Tony adds time, he's not becoming more like Vince. I think like I said before, it's got to be a case-by-case thing. I don't think Tony Khan should really have one blanket rule for everybody. I think you should look at each person's individual situation. And if Tony Khan feels like adding more time is something that he needs to do, then he should have a reason for wanting to do that. But like I said earlier, if he knows Andrade's leaving, and Andrade says, hey, how you know? He says, Tony Khan, whether you add time to me or don't add time to me, regardless of what you do, I'm leaving. So if you're Tony Khan, why would you do that? There's got to be a bigger reason there. Or maybe he feels that, Andrade didn't live up to some of his contract obligations, so he wants to keep him around. It would feel, though, Luigi, if Tony Khan did that, he would be doing it more out of spite, which is a very Vince and, quite frankly, WWE in general thing to do. As much as I sing the praises of Triple H, and I am so eternally grateful that he is at the helm and not Vince, he ain't perfect by any means. We have had countless amounts of video evidence of Triple H being a monumental douchebag. And back in the day, back in 2015, there was definitely a part of Triple H that existed that wanted the fans to be disappointed. He wanted that. It felt and made them feel good to see us pissed off. It made them feel good to see us frustrated. I swear to God, he felt that way. Nowadays, it's different. Once Triple H took over NXT and he started working with young talent and shaping the future, I think his motivations changed, and maybe even his feelings changed, to where now I feel like he's more motivated to please the fans, to deliver good quality content, not to be a troll. And I feel like there was a time about 8 years ago where Triple H was nothing but a troll. He did not care how much shit and garbage they threw at us because they knew the fans would be back every week, and there was no other competition out there to light a fire under their ass. So with AEW forming and Vince McMahon getting in trouble, those two things drastically shaped and changed the shape and course of wrestling. But Tony has got a lot more to do than adding time to one contract to be more like Vince. Tony Khan is nowhere. They are two completely opposite people. Both bad in some ways, both good in some ways, but they couldn't be more different, in my mind. So I feel like if there's a situation where Tony Khan has to do something like that, I wouldn't agree if he added more time to Andrade, but in my mind, I would probably tell myself, well, I guess Tony Khan's got his reasons. We don't know why he did this. We don't know the conversations that happened between Andrade and Tony Khan unless Andrade spills it in an interview. We're not going to really know that. So it's his, he's not doing anything illegal or wrong. He's asking you to fulfill your contract. I will never have a problem with somebody doing that. They signed to work with you, so they should fulfill that contract. So it just depends. I don't want to just, automatically assume that, he's adding time to his contract to be a spiteful asshole and he's going to turn into Vince now. I think that's way too much assumption. Deshaun Robinson, appreciate the 5. In my opinion, do Rollins and Punk at Mania and repeat what happened at Mania 31 and have Judgment Day help Priest win the title because Priest deserves a title run. I love that. And I thought about that on Monday night as well. Or maybe last night, not Monday night. Last night when Punk cut his promo and made his intentions known for WrestleMania. And I'm like, well, that would also be a perfect place for Damian Priest because I really don't want to see him shut out. I feel like Priest was penciled in to win that championship. I don't think they would have given him the briefcase for him to fail at his cash-in. I think the company's impressed with him. They're high on him. We've seen the type of matches that he's had this year, even the high-profile ones with Bad Bunny. And he's capable, and they should make a star out of him. I've been expecting him to cash in way before WrestleMania. I was thinking he would do it at Survivor Series until CM Punk showed up and changed everything. Now, Rollins, if he's going to have a title match at Royal Rumble, I don't know. You would think it might be against CM Punk. That's what I assumed earlier, is that Punk and Rollins would work at the Rumble, but now Punk made it seem like it's going to be a WrestleMania type of thing. Maybe that's where you do the Damian Priest cash-in. I still hope that he does it. And if it happened at the close of a Rollins and Punk match, I think that would be the best way to do it. That's what I mentioned right from the very start when I thought that Rollins and Punk would work Rumble. I said, have Rollins beat him beat him clean in the match, retain the title, and then maybe after that, if you wanted to have Punk attack Rollins or low blow him or something to prompt out Damian Priest, who cashes in, and then you could do a rematch, Rollins and Punk at WrestleMania. But then it wouldn't be in the main event. It would probably be like a Hell in the Cell match on night 2. So this whole needing to main event thing makes you think Rollins, or at least Punk by himself, is headed for a night 1 main event. So we'll see. But I'm loving the Priest thing. If Priest closes out night 1 winning the title, I'm perfectly fine with that. Perfectly fine with that. But that would mean that now both champions would be on Raw. Well, no. How's this going to work? I don't even know. I guess Cody might have to make the move. I don't know how anything's going to work. We might have to have another draft and move some shit around because if Cody wins the Rumble, he's going to challenge Roman. And let's say he beats Roman at WrestleMania, but Cody's a Raw guy. And if Priest wins the world title and the cash-in at WrestleMania, he's a Raw guy. And now you got both world champions on the same show. Or would Cody by default be moved to SmackDown if he beats Roman? Feels like that would be the case. And if that would be the case, that would still keep a champion on each show. Cody on SmackDown, Priest and Punk and Rollins on Raw. That might be good. There's so much to think about. We have so many different possibilities. It's crazy. Good to see Clyde Wendell Slater. Hope all is well with you, man. It's all good that you're late. Good to see Dante Chazzy. I can't read that name, but good to see you as well. WWE fan is in with $5. Appreciate that, dude. Greg, what did you think of Punk's line about punching people backstage? We're about to get to that. A very subtle shot at the AEW situation. Looks bad on Punk, in my opinion. No way. It does not look bad on Punk, in my opinion. I want shots to be taken. If anything, what looked bad was the fact that the crowd didn't react to that at all. I had no issue with it, really, though. Victor Colon, good to see you. Doug Unfunny, TGA Gaming, Isaac, Kevin, DK Kong, Daniel, Giovanni. Anybody else that's been chiming in? Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Thumbs up button would be appreciated. Right on, Amato. You're going to go get a sandwich and get ha. That's good. I would like to do that, but I got to go to work after this. All right, let's talk about WWE Tribute to the Troops. Last night on SmackDown, they brought back Tribute to the Troops, incorporating it into SmackDown. I like this much better than the old shows they used to do when they used to go overseas. And every time they did one of these, I never watched them ever because they never furthered any storylines. They were just like a house show for the troops, which was nice, but I never gave a shit about it. But now they're tying it into SmackDown, and they're actually having matches with stakes and storyline stuff. So now I'm fine with it, and it's nice for the troops to actually be able to see a much better show than just the walkthrough bullshit that they were seeing in Iraq and all of that. So we had a really nice rendition of God Bless America from War and Treaty. I don't like God Bless America. I don't like God Bless America, and I don't like the national anthem. What I like is America the Beautiful. That's a much better song. I wish they would just sing that. But I've never been a big God Bless America fan or national anthem fan. I think America the Beautiful is a prettier song in my mind. JBL was back for this on commentary, which is fitting because I think it was JBL's idea to start doing the tribute to the troops all those years ago, way back in the day. So JBL sat in. I think he replaced Corey Graves. Now, the matches we saw, we opened up with Santos Escobar defeating Dragon Lee. Clean and a pretty good match here. And this is the U.S. title #1 contenders tournament that they're currently running right now. So Santos advances, and Dragon Lee is actually going to be replacing his brother Wes tonight at NXT Deadline against Dominic Mysterio for the North American title. Poor Wes Lee got injured, very heartfelt title forfeiture on NXT this week. Felt bad for him. He's going to be out for a while, I think, with back surgery, which sucks. And now Dragon Lee is going to be taking his place against Dominic, and I feel like a title change is possible here. Is Dragon Lee, after they feel like they've been so high on him, are they going to have him drop matches on back-to-back nights here, or does Dominic finally cough up the title? I feel like Dominic kind of needs to remain champion for the purposes of the Judgment Day storyline, for him to hold the title a little bit longer before people start dropping their shit, is what I would do. But if you do that, you got to make sure a whole bunch of Judgment Day is out there, or Dominic has a whole hell of a lot of help to beat Dragon Lee, or maybe loses via DQ or countout or something like that, where he doesn't pass the title off to Dragon Lee. But Dominic just flat out beating Dragon Lee tonight, I don't know. I'll be doing my best to keep an eye on Deadline tonight, especially since CM Punk might poke his straight edge face in there. Randy Orton backstage with Nick Aldis. This was fun. He shows up and he pays Nick Aldis for the fine that Aldis gave him last week for hitting him with the RKO. And the fine was for $50,000. He gives Aldis a check for $100,000. And Aldis is like, the fine was for $50,000. Why is it for $100,000? And Orton goes, that's for next time. He just walked away. Great stuff. We had Lashley defeating Karrion Kross in another U.S. number one contenders tournament match. He hit him with the spear for the win. I didn't catch who was on commentary there. Maybe some old coach or some Army drill instructor or something like that of Lashley. Didn't catch who was doing guest commentary there. But Lashley put down Kross pretty easily with the spear to move on in the tournament. And that's when we got the CM Punk promo. So CM Punk was actually, before we get to the CM Punk promo, let's finish what else happened on SmackDown so we can just close with CM Punk. We also had Asuka defeating Charlotte. Now, this was the match I just talked about a minute ago where Charlotte got injured on a fall from the top rope. She was like on the turnbuckle. She fell and her leg hit the rope and bounced violently backwards. She landed on the mat. They went to commercial. I think officials and the doctors attended to her for a while. She finished the match, even got a figure eight up on Asuka before Bayley came in and broke it up, distracting Charlotte, who was really hobbling around on her leg, but trying to finish. Asuka then rolled her up and pinned her for the win. And it definitely looked like Charlotte was legitimately hurt. Did not look like a work. You could see it on her face. She still finished the match. Good for her. Tough woman. And I'm just hoping that there's no ligament or damage or any sort of major tears going on with Charlotte's leg. And that worst she did is injure it, needs to rest it, keep off it for a couple of weeks, and she'll be fine. But if there's any sort of anything there, that could be an injury that's going to keep her out for a lot of time. So best of luck to Charlotte. I don't always approve of WWE's use of her, but I still respect her, and just wish her the best in whatever recovery she may have there. That was kind of scary. In the main event, we saw Randy Orton teaming up with LA Knight to defeat Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso. Randy Orton kind of took the finish away from LA Knight, who went for the blunt force trauma on Jimmy Uso, but Randy Orton kind of pushed him out of the way and hit the RKO on Jimmy instead and pinned him. And LA Knight was like, all right. And Randy Orton was like, what are you going to do about it? I didn't even know who you were. That was one of the things he said backstage with Nick Aldis, is that he didn't even know who LA Knight was until last week. What? I didn't think that was a really good line to say. Randy Orton, you've not been watching the product? Like, how do you not know who LA Knight is? Even if you've been injured, nursing an injury, you don't have a phone, you don't have Twitter, you don't have a TV. You've somehow not known who LA Knight is during this time that you've been injured. I find that hard to believe. But they did share a handshake at the end of the match, and who knows? They have the same goal. They hate the bloodline, but feels like we could get something between these two guys, maybe heading into WrestleMania. We will see, especially if Randy Orton does inevitably go heel. Now we'll backtrack a little bit. We'll talk about that big CM Punk promo, which was pretty good, to be honest. It was much better than what he cut on Raw a couple weeks ago, where he really never said much. This time he came out and he actually mentioned people. Mentioned a lot of people. First person he mentioned was the tribal chief, Roman Reigns. And he said he acknowledges him. He's the man. He acknowledges Roman Reigns, but he said, don't forget who the first Paul Heyman guy was. He was an OG Paul Heyman guy, and he was my wise man before he was yours. And that is such a perfect little setup there for what these two guys are going to do in 2024. There is no way you can't do CM Punk versus Roman Reigns. The very last image of CM Punk in AEW was him with that belt over his shoulder and doing the thing. That was a direct message, I think. I'm coming after you now because obviously I'm going to be fired here at this place. Now, I don't think CM Punk and Roman Reigns is going to happen at WrestleMania. I think CM Punk and Roman Reigns is going to happen at SummerSlam. Possibly maybe even Crown Jewel if there's one on the card there in between. But I feel like SummerSlam is where you want to do CM Punk and Roman Reigns. And that will probably not be for a title, just like CM Punk and Brock Lesnar was not for the title. If memory serves, back in 2013. You can tie Paul Heyman into this. Punk could go heel. Heyman could side with Punk, and then Roman comes back as a babyface. If Cody beats Roman at WrestleMania, and then Roman, disappears for a short time, Heyman then latches to Punk Roman comes back, what the fuck? And then you got your WrestleMania match, your SummerSlam match, and now Roman is a babyface. So that's one way to do it. The fact that they kind of laid the foundation here, they eventually have got to get to Punk and Heyman in the ring doing something. It's going to be a really fun 2024, I think. That's why I'm okay with CM Punk coming back. I might have my personal feelings on how it must be backstage for the talent and should this guy be allowed to be brought back or whatever, but he brings exciting things with him. And these prospects of Punk and Roman in 2024 is really exciting to think about. I really hope that this all happens the way we think it's going to happen. Now, Punk also mentioned the rest of the bloodline, Solo Sikoa. He mentioned Jimmy. He also mentioned Jey Uso. I might just sign with Monday Night Raw to hang out with Jey Uso. He's a great guy or something like that, he said, kind of cheesy. Talked about Randy Orton, all the history he has with him, and LA Knight. Another guy he mentioned was Kevin Owens. Now, we talked about Kevin Owens last week because him and Punk do have a little bit of a history from Ring of Honor, the whole T-shirt gate when Punk told him not to wear the T-shirt, and they got into a little thing years ago. Even back then, Owens said that the two of them are fine now, but you got to think stuff like that. You don't forget. And we were wondering last week, since Punk was not on SmackDown, and then Kevin Owens got injured, and then Punk was advertised for the next week's SmackDown. I was wondering if Triple H was getting Kevin Owens out of the way. I'm like, we don't want to be doing what AEW was doing, keeping the Elite and Punk not on the same show and shit like that. You start doing that, you're going to have major problems. Turns out that wasn't the case at all. Not only did Punk mention Kevin Owens in the promo, he would come face to face with him a few minutes later behind or backstage. Now, what was great about the Kevin Owens stuff is he mentioned Kevin Owens, and he said, he goes, I think the problem with me and Kevin Owens is we're just too much alike. I mean, who would want to work with someone that just randomly punches people backstage? And he really built it up to deliver that line. And when he delivered it, it didn't land, which sucks. And I think that's WWE not being able to read the room here, him doing this on SmackDown, on this SmackDown tribute to the troops when you had a lot of troops in the audience. And honestly, I would think that our military and the people that fight to defend our freedom probably have a little bit more to think about than who's fighting and punching each other backstage in AEW. You know what I mean? They probably got bigger fish to fry. So they're probably not that privy to behind the scenes stuff and the little things that can be said in promos that can get reactions out of a crowd. I don't think the crowd that was in attendance last night for SmackDown quite understood that. But man, it got a lot of oohs and ahs from everybody at home. Now, I saw a lot of tweets of, this is because nobody watches AEW. No, that's not why it is at all. I think making that same line in a different city would have gotten a lot bigger of a reaction or a different show. It's just because of who the audience was. That's it. And if you watch the whole thing all the way through, after a few seconds went by, it registered. The fans just might not have picked up on it right away. Then they were like, that type of thing. And then a CM Punk chant started. So delayed reaction, not a big deal. Doesn't mean nobody understands anything. Just means that I saw a lot of that. The online audience isn't who goes to shows. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's not the same audience. It's the exact same fucking audience. I go to shows. I'm online. I don't know what that even fucking means. Everybody has a goddamn phone. Everybody has a Twitter. Everybody follows WWE. So I think, and probably AEW. So the line didn't land, but I still thought it was really good. And it was funny. It was a way to take a shot without violating any sort of NDA. And I think that's another thing that Punk and Triple H and WWE probably want to be as creative as possible on. What can we say? How can we get up to the line? We don't want to get sued. We don't need that. We just, TKO's brand new company. We don't want a lawsuit right out of the gate here. But how far can we go up to the line of not technically violating any NDA? So I hope we get a few more little tiny digs like that. That was a pretty good one. And yeah, why? And maybe that's why they've been doing the Kevin Owens punching people, is just so CM Punk could deliver that line. And that was pretty cool. And then he said that on Monday, he will be on Monday Night Raw to put pen to paper, where he will begin the process of finishing his story. And his story is to main event WrestleMania. And he said that directly into the camera. So he made it crystal clear that he also has a story to finish. And that's really awesome. So we go to commercial, we come back. Punk is walking backstage, right? He passes by the bloodline door and he looks at it. Paul Heyman supposedly is right on the other side of that door. Have they even seen each other in the last 10 years? And he kind of looked at the door and then kept walking. Then he runs right into, passes by Kevin Owens. And the two stop. They look at each other. Owens just kind of stares at him in disgust. And Punk goes, hey, do you know where Nick Aldis's locker room is or where his office is? And Owens goes, no, and just keeps walking. Love it. Love it. So all of these little things are setting up so many different possibilities here. You know, and Owens and Punk would be a lot of fun. I mentioned Owens and Punk a couple of years ago. You know, how cool it would be if those two were to be in a ring cutting a promo on each other. And they're two guys, again, that I think would have no problem working together, even though they had that little spat many, many years ago in Ring of Honor. As adults, as grown professional men who are now millionaires, you shouldn't let little things like that bother you. It should be very easy for these guys to work together. Owens, you know, he's a professional as well. He did do that interview with our channel member, James Williams, just a week or so ago, where he did kind of mention like, you know, look, I just want to have fun at work. That's all I want to do. I don't want any bullshit. So he might be thinking that Punk being there could add a little bit of a stressful nature to the locker room, sure. But I think in terms of doing business with him, Kevin Owens would be a fool not to. And so the fact that they did have that little interaction backstage briefly was cool to me because it signifies to me that there's probably no lingering real heat from back in the day. And then the really cool part happened. Then after that, we see CM Punk in Nick Aldis's office. He finally finds it without the help of Kevin Owens. He finds it anyway. And Aldis gives Punk the Smackdown contract, but Punk already said he's going to wait until Monday to do it. And he goes, you know, finishing your story, you know, you can do that by signing your contract right here. And that's when Cody walks in. Cody walks in, Nick Aldis kind of goes away, and it's Cody and Punk, or Cody and Punk, I should say. And that was mind-blowing to me just to see those two together in the same room. I wasn't really sure about their relationship either. I thought maybe part of the reason why Cody left AEW was because of CM Punk. We didn't know. So now they're here, they're face to face. And Cody says to Punk, he says, you know, if you're going to finish your story, if you also have a story to finish, that means that you're going to have to win the Rumble, just like me. And right off the bat, boom, you have added a great story into this Royal Rumble match, because now you've got two guys, not just Cody, who we've heard about the finish the story narrative for well over a year now. Now, Punk has got a story of his own to finish, and this is going to be really exciting, I think, in the Royal Rumble. It might spoil our final two. I don't know how you do the Royal Rumble and not have Punk and Cody as your final two, that little tease of what it's going to be like when they finally do lock up. You know, like back in 2007 at the end of that Rumble, Shawn and Taker wrestled for the first time in years and then didn't wrestle again for another 3, you know, just in that little Rumble match. So it would be cool to see Punk and Cody be the final two, but not really have a match or a program against each other for months later, because they will likely at the end of WrestleMania maybe even be on separate brands. So Cody eliminates Punk, then Punk goes to Australia, wins the Elimination Chamber. He gets the match with Rollins on night 1. Cody gets the match with Roman on night 2. And Rollins and Cody, but probably Priest and Cody, walk out of WrestleMania as champion. I don't think CM Punk will. I don't think, where we sit right now, December 9th, 2023, I could change my mind on this, but I feel like Punk loses that WrestleMania title match and he does not win it. So we'll see if I'm right or wrong about that. But we have to get there first. They have to get to the Rumble. They have to get in the Royal Rumble. And I don't think it would be Punk winning the Rumble and challenging Roman. I think that's going to be Cody, and Punk and Rollins can do their thing. And I like the idea of that Damian Priest cash in somewhere in there at the Rumble, at the Chamber, at WrestleMania. We have 3 huge shows coming up, so we will see where all of that lands. But Punk and Cody just being there, shaking hands, was crazy, because when Cody told him, you're going to have to win the Rumble just like me, he said, Punk, it's good to have you back. And Punk says, thanks for having me. Almost acknowledging that it's Cody's house now. You know, you're the one inviting me in. You know, I'm not the king of this place anymore. And they shared a nice little handshake, but it wasn't a tense moment. It was just a surreal one. If anybody knows any wrestling fans who just woke up from a 2.5-year coma, show them the picture of Cody and CM Punk right now. bro, look at this. These two fools on SmackDown. I'm like, how fucking long have I been asleep for? Jesus. I mean, it's just surreal to me. It's nuts, completely nuts that these two were in the same room on a WWE show on Fox, shaking hands, setting up Royal Rumble and WrestleMania stuff. Crazy, you know? Jade Cargill, Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, all once big parts of AEW. Nuts. So SmackDown last night was very interesting and very cool that CM Punk actually said some things in this promo, and it was much better received than his Monday Night Raw one. And like I said, what was cool about it is it set up unlimited options for Punk's future and what he's going to do and who he could potentially work with. 2024 looks pretty awesome. We're probably going to get Punk and Rollins, or we could get Punk and Owens, Punk and Roman, Punk and Cody. That could all happen within the next calendar year, theoretically. I think maybe a little longer than that is more realistic, but technically Punk could get all of those matches in the next year alone if they wanted to. So very cool. Just crazy to see Punk back in WWE. I'm going to keep saying that let me think. Give me like 4 more podcasts. I'll try to limit it to 4 more podcasts, and then I'll stop saying it's so crazy to see him there. But I feel like I'm just going to say that for a while because it's crazy to see him there. Fucking nuts, man. We'll get into Dynamite here in just a second. Let me go over to Mr. Chat, see what's going on. Thumbs up button would still be appreciated. If you guys could smash a couple more there. Thank you so much. And thanks again for hanging out with me on Saturday. We'll try to wrap this up before Deadline and Collision starts. If you're a big NXT fan, you're probably watching the pre-show right now. So I'm sorry for taking you away from that. Rey Mysterio is in Dragon Lee's corner tonight, Juliet. Thank you for that. Okay. He was the one that announced Dragon Lee replacing Wes, right? Stephen Harris, TNA Wrestling announces Endeavor as their streaming partner from 5th January 2024. Yes, I should have mentioned that as well. So TNA has landed a streaming deal before AEW does, which is pretty crazy. And it's under WWE's parent company, which is even crazier. Forgot to mention that earlier, but thank you for that, Stephen. No, Nick Steele, you did not miss all of me yet. We're almost done, but we still have some stuff to talk about. Both are on? Is Collision airing early or something that I don't know about? Right on. Okay. Well, if there's wrestling happening right now, I don't want to keep you guys from that. So let's talk really briefly about Wednesday night's Dynamite because we did see some interesting things. What the hell was that noise? Dog outside. Anyway, we had some Continental Classic matches on Dynamite. This was going to be Gold League matches. We had Jay White defeating Jay Lethal. We had Swerve Strickland defeating Mark Briscoe. And we had Moxley defeating Roosh. All 3 of these were pretty good matches. The Gold League, as it stands right now, is Moxley and Swerve both with 9 points, and Roosh and Jay White with 3 points each. And a couple of people like Jay Lethal, I believe, and Briscoe have been mathematically eliminated from winning the tournament. We had the fun little segment there in the aisleway with Roddy and Renee. Roddy is healed now. He stands up from the chair. And it's a miracle, and he can now walk again, and he's not going to be held back by the wheelchair anymore. We've heard reports that Kyle O'Reilly has been seen hanging around backstage and sounds like he is very close to a return to AEW. So you got to wonder if Roddy and Kyle O'Reilly are going to be involved in the Devil or Masked Men storyline. The fact that we could have some sort of an Undisputed Era reunion here, especially if maybe they bring back Bobby Fish. You know, so even though Bobby Fish I think he just turned 132 years old last week. Usually people of Bobby Fish's era can wrestle well into their 150s. So I feel like Fish still has some gas left in his tank if they wanted to bring him in. And then, of course, if Adam Cole was a big part of this and the whole Devil storyline turned out to be Undisputed Era related, that could work. But the Roddy stuff was quite funny. Now, MJF was also interviewed backstage with Renee Paquette as well. And before he is able to be interviewed, Hangman Page shows up and talks to Renee. And she's like, how do you feel after your match with Swerve? And he admits and conceded that he lost the Texas Death Match. He said, it took Prince Nana and Brian Cage to get it done, but you beat me. You hit me in the head with a cinder block and you choked me out. I couldn't even fly for a couple of weeks. And basically says that he knows what Swerve wants. He said, you broke into my home, you stood over my son's bed, and I know what you want and what is the most important to you, and I'm going to make sure and see to it that you do not get what you want the most. And I fucking love that, because what that's telling me is that we're going to revisit Hangman Page and Swerve in 2024, and this could be revisited after Swerve wins the title. I think it would be a really good swerve for, Hangman Page is basically saying he's going to do whatever he can to take away or prevent Swerve getting what he wants. And if you're in Hangman Page's shoes, would they want to do the thing where maybe, hell, Hangman Page could even be the devil, as we'll talk about in a minute, with MJF being cracked over the head with a beer bottle. So I could see a future match between Swerve and MJF in 2024. I think Swerve is the person that should beat MJF for the title. That's what I believe. I would put the belt on Swerve next. It would be kind of cool if Hangman is basically tormenting Swerve and making his life a living hell while Swerve is trying to build to his championship match. And all the fans think that Hangman is going to cost Swerve the title. And maybe in the title match, he shows up and then he helps Swerve win instead. Jim the Anvil Neidhart, King of the Ring 94 type of thing. And he actually helps Swerve win. And then the announcer's like, what the fuck? Hangman hates Swerve. Why would he go out there and help him win the title? Unless he wants to be the one to take it away from him. But I'm not sure how that motivation would make sense, because then Swerve would still be winning the title, still be gaining everything that he's wanted. Now Hangman, it's up to him to take it away from him, or Hangman can just outright prevent him. So I feel like Hangman and Swerve, we're going to see this again in 2024, and this now might be a title program if Swerve winds up winning the World Heavyweight title from MJF at some point. So that's what I hope they do, but Hangman acknowledging that nothing is even close to being over between him and Swerve was really, really cool, while starting some stuff with MJF, because then after that, Maxwell shows up and he says, oh yeah, it was great watching you and Swerve wrestle at the pay-per-view to see who could get the most STDs. And they start arguing, they start reliving the history between them, comparing their title reigns, that type of thing. And that's when Hangman just accuses MJF outright of being the devil. How do I know it's just not you're the devil? You're just running around beating people up. It's probably you. And that's when Samoa Joe shows up. He breaks it up and he tells MJF to concentrate on their own issues, and they have nothing to do with Hangman Page, because they have got a tag team match up next against two of the masked assailants in the Devil faction. So that's the match we thought we were going to get. We did speculate that they would do something to not do the match, that maybe it wouldn't happen, because if you get two of the masked guys in the ring, people who are really big wrestling fans, you watch a couple of guys move long enough in the ring, you can probably figure out who it is. So I was surprised we were going to get an in-ring match this early, and wondering if they were going to do something to get out of it, and they did. So Joe comes out to the ring first, the lights go out, they start flashing, and all the masked men start surrounding the ring. And then the lights come back on, and on the screen, on the Tron, you see backstage MJF laid out with a broken beer bottle all around his head. So that could mean anything. A beer bottle. Who likes to drink? The person he was just talking to. Hangman Page. We didn't see the attack. We just saw MJF laid out. So we didn't see the proof that it happened. It could be MJF. It could be, we saw evidence there that could be Hangman or MJF as the devil, because we had the beer bottle and we had MJF just laying there. Nobody saw the attack. So adding more possibilities to the whodunit, I don't think is bad. I love whodunits, but I just worry that, the payoff might not be as good as the build or the anticipation. That's what I'm worried about. And plus, with some of the henchmen, one of them is Wardlow. He's went out of his way to make that known. So you feel like one's going to be him. Getting Wardlow in the mix with some of those Undisputed Era guys might be a little bit fun, especially if Cole is involved in here. So if it turns out to be Adam Cole, O'Reilly, Taven, Bennett, and O'Reilly, something like that, and Wardlow, that's about 6 guys, right? Again, Cole is still, you would think Cole would be the devil, which means they're not going to be able to reveal that it's Adam Cole until he's a little bit closer to recovery. I feel like they could reveal Adam Cole before he's fully healed, and they can just kind of keep him in the background type of thing. But it would be better if he was healed. So we'll see how long they drag this out and who the devil ends up being. But right now, I still think it could kind of be anybody. And of course, we have MJF for Samoa Joe at World's End on December 30th. We'll react to the whole pay-per-view, by the way, right here live on YouTube. We will schedule that for that night, and we'll watch it together. And we'll see if we get a title change at the end of the year or if MJF does carry into 2024 as champion, which means even though he's only held the title for a little bit over a year, he would have held the title in 3 different years. 2022, 2023, and 2024 is pretty cool. So we'll see if he gets that far or not. And if Joe is the one to win the title and maybe pass it to Swerve, I don't know. All I know is I think Swerve Strickland needs to be champion in 2024, and it needs not be later than 2024. That is his year. That's Swerve's year. Some fun news for next week's Dynamite. We have the Von Erichs showing up. It's going to be Kevin and I guess his sons Ross and Marshall. Keep Christian away from them, please. The Von Erichs are going to be on Dynamite next week. I don't know how Christian does not come out there. We're about 1 week away from the release of Iron Claw, which will be streaming on Max, I believe, but I think it's a theatrical release first, I think. I'm not sure. But the Von Erichs on Dynamite next week should be interesting, and I have a feeling Christian is going to have a lot to say about that. But I hope that he doesn't, because it's different with the Von Erichs. It's a real tragedy, and I think that making fun of suicide and stuff, even for Christian, that's a little steep. So I don't know if you want to go there or not, but Von Erichs on the show, the first person I thought of was Christian Cage. So I'm worried about Wednesday, to say the least. Speaking of our friend Christian Cage, he successfully defended his TNT championship in the main event of AEW Dynamite this week, defeating longtime brother and friend Adam Copeland. And I didn't love this, to be honest. I thought that they did a finish and an ending that we didn't need. With Nick Wayne's mom and all of that. Christian has been doing the best work of his career in this run in the past year or so with the TNT title and everything he did with Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus and everything he's currently doing in the turtleneck and shitting on everybody's dead dads and all of that stuff has been great. Now Adam Copeland comes in because him and Christian want to get a chance to work together again before they both retire. And at first, I was a little not sure about. I marked out for his return or his debut in AEW. I put it on YouTube, marking out like a 6-year-old little bitch. But everything that he did after that wasn't hitting as hard for me for some reason. I liked it. Very cool and surreal to see Edge in an AEW ring, just like it's surreal to see Punk in a WWE ring. But it wasn't. Something just felt missing, and then it got a little bit better. Edge had that great promo on Collision a couple of weeks ago. Loved his appearance on AEW with RJ City. And the last couple of promos between Adam and Christian have been really, really good. So it made me excited to see the match. It was main eventing a Dynamite. I thought either way would be fine here. Adam winning a title in AEW would be kind of cool. Christian hanging on to the title would also be kind of cool. First match in like 21 years between these guys, which is crazy. I was 24 years old last time they had a match, which is just fucking nuts. And I was really looking forward to this one. And the match was good. I mean, they both wrestled their style of match. They're very familiar with each other. And to see Edge and Christian in the ring together again as opponents was very cool to see. That I liked. The match, I had no problem with either. The match was fine. But then it got to the finish. The finish I really didn't like. We get Christian just goes right behind, is it Remsburg? I forgot who the ref was. I think it's Remsburg. Just kicks him right in the balls. Referee goes down. I don't think he saw that it was Christian, so there was no DQ. Kicks the ref in the balls, and that's when Shayna Wayne comes out there. She comes out, and of course, Christian's been pretty shitty to her, and Nick Wayne turned his back on her, and that whole thing. And you knew something was going to happen because Christian mentioned on the mic a couple of weeks ago, like, if you would have played your cards different, things could be different between you and I, but that's a story for another time. So that right there was your clue that she probably could still come around. People who aren't wrestlers and aren't often in the ring just really shouldn't be in there doing main event type of shit, because she was in there with the belt. You could hear Christian saying, look at me, like he wanted her to kind of make it seem like she was trying to decide who to hit, but she kind of just stared at Edge the whole time. And then she hit him with the belt. He really had to lean in to take the belt shot, and he went down. And then that allowed Christian to pick up Adam, who by now, referee's coming to, hits him with the kill switch and wins the match, retaining the title with Shayna Wayne, I guess, turning heel. The announcer's like, what is she doing? It didn't hit. It didn't stick. They didn't stick this landing at all. I don't think you needed Shayna Wayne in there for any of this finish. I understand that Christian's got the relationship with Nick Wayne and everything going on there and what they're trying to make there. That's fine. But this is not the way I would have finished this match. I would have maybe done it in a match between Nick Wayne and Edge or something and have the mom come out there. But Edge and Christian needing Shayna Wayne to get to the finish felt weird, didn't like it. But what I did like was what happened after that. When Christian has been saying on TV, I'm going to break your neck. And this was just very dark, because after the match, he puts Adam's head on the belt. And without even a lot of buildup, he didn't play to the crowd, or, he didn't wind up, or he didn't stomp his foot, or he, didn't delay. He just laid Adam's neck right on the belt, and like a spider on the ground, boom, just stomped it. Stomped his neck. Didn't even really make much of a noise. It was just this thud. It was this quiet, like, of just your foot going through, neck muscles and bone, and just like, it's just gnarly. So that might have been a way to write off Edge for a little while until the end of the year. Maybe he's not going to work World's End, and he's not going to work anything around the holidays, which sucks because I kind of thought they would run it back at World's End, maybe with a stipulation. They might still do that, but I don't know how you stomp a 50-year-old who already has a surgically repaired neck. I don't know how you stomp his neck as hard as you can, and then he's back on Dynamite this week, setting up a pay-per-view match. You would think he's going to be out for some time, and this might have been a way to write Edge off for the rest of the year, to where it was just one shot. It's not like it's going to be a 3-match ordeal between Adam and Christian, at least not right now. And Christian, put down Edge, and Edge is going to be gone for a while before returning to rekindle the feud with Christian. Maybe a big match at Revolution. Maybe that's what they're waiting for here. But when Edge first signed, he said he was signing on for, full time. So I don't think he's going to be taking large chunks of time off. Maybe just a couple of weeks here for the holidays, but I would think he would be back, as early as January, and maybe they can set something up for Revolution, or perhaps another big Dynamite main event or whatever. But I had no problem with the match being on Dynamite. Why isn't this on pay-per-view? I'm like, I don't fucking care where it is. Put it wherever you want. As long as it's given a good stage, I'm cool with that. Main eventing a Dynamite. They need big matches on Dynamite to keep those ratings up. So I really had no issue with that. But I also felt that they could have a pay-per-view match as well, a rematch. But since Christian stomped his neck, I don't know if World's End, that's just 3 weeks away, can Edge recover in time to make that match? Or is this going to be a 2024 thing? We don't know. But pretty good Dynamite. I like the Continental Classic matches. I like the MJF and Samoa Joe and Hangman Page stuff and Swerve stuff. And I liked the main event between Adam and Christian, except for Nick Wayne's mom being a part of that, which I just didn't think she did a really good job, and I don't really need her in this situation, but she's there, so whatever. Now, next week on Dynamite, all I see advertised for the show is a doozy of a Continental Classic match between Jon Moxley and Swerve Strickland. So somebody is going to have to eat a loss there. And honestly, in this situation, I'm rooting for Moxley. I feel like Swerve's best path to the AEW title is to not be this, whatever this Triple Crown, Ring of Honor, New Japan champion shit is. I feel like that might almost derail his path to that belt. And I'd rather just see a Mox or Danielson take it and Swerve be saved for the AEW world title. So it's weird, even though I want Swerve to continue to be elevated, win big matches, and contend for a world title, this is one where I think he needs to lose. And I kind of hope he does, just for, you have to retreat to move forward. And, dropping one here in order to get a bigger prize down the road is something that I kind of hope happens. If Swerve wins the Continental Classic, great. Can't think of a more deserving guy, to be honest with you. But when you have hopes that he's going to do more, I just think that there's a bigger trophy than this Continental Classic. So hopefully Swerve can get to that. And I think Mox beating him next week, maybe with some help from Hangman or something, could keep that plan in place. Last night on Rampage, I only wrote down one match. It was a Continental Classic Blue League match with Danielson taking down Daniel Garcia. So I don't know how many matches these two guys have had in their AEW history, but I want to say a minimum of 4 between Danielson and Garcia. Danielson, is the orbital bone injury a work? I thought we had heard that it was real, but the way Danielson is, he's fucking meditating after his matches. He's so fabulous. He's so fucking great. And he's wearing that eye patch thing now. So I don't know, maybe the orbital bone was a work. It might be. So he beats Garcia. And in the Blue League, we've got the standings at Danielson with 6 points, Brody King also with 6 points, and Andrade and Claudio with 3 each. And like I said, we have Collision that was already taped on Tuesday. So you can find the spoilers here if you would like. It's about to air right now, or it's already airing now, as somebody in the chat said. If you're interested in that, we have the Blue League matches tonight. Danielson versus Andrade. That's going to be mwah. Claudio versus Eddie Kingston for the Continental Classic matches. We also have Ethan Page and Kenny Omega one-on-one. That's fun. Willow Nightingale against Mercedes Martinez, and Penta and Commander versus 2.0. And we'll also hear from Hook. And like I said, big NXT deadline show that's also about to start with the pre-show going on right now. So luckily, I have made it to the end of my notes in time before all that stuff happens. Nick of time, too. So we will see what else is left to say here in the chat, and then I will get out of here. Does Nick Wayne's mom have it going on? Not like Stacy's mom, I don't think. But yeah, I didn't like it. Yeah, if Beth Phoenix is still tied down to WWE contractually with a Legends deal or something, it does suck that she can't get involved in this, because if Beth was out there, you would think Beth would maybe want to be at ringside for a match like that between him and her husband and Christian, somebody that she knows very well, has been in her home and eaten her food and drank her milk and shit in her toilet. So I feel like she would want to be there for that, but I guess she can't, which is a bummer. A bummer. Joshua Aparicio, thank you for that $5 earlier, dude. Hey, Greg, remember the real main event, Tozawa versus R-Truth in an Iron Man match for the 24/7 title in the main event of WrestleMania, Danhausen as the referee. Man, Iron Man, that would be so fun. What would the final score be? I think R-Truth would win 168-4. That's what I think the score would be in that Iron Man match. That would be fun. That would be fun. I actually think that would do well as your WrestleMania main event. Honestly, I think the fans would be into it. Thank you, Yachiro. Good to see you as well. Quan, man, prayers for Charlotte. Crazy how people are happy she's injured. That's just the armpit of Twitter. That's the butthole of Twitter, of social media that you never want to see. People like that are pieces of shit. We wished Charlotte nothing but the best earlier. I even said, I'm like, I don't always approve of WWE's use of her, but that doesn't mean I don't respect her. And certainly don't want to see anybody get injured, especially when it's a knee thing, and that can be so gnarly. Again, have we gotten any word on that? I have not seen a Charlotte update today, so I don't know. I'm just kind of scrolling here a little bit. I don't see any updates on her injury status, if she did have an MRI or if we know anything about her injury. But hopefully, whatever it was, is a quick heal and an early recovery time, and nothing is surgery related or no tears and ACLs and ligaments and all that shit. Hopefully she's all right. Let's all keep our fingers crossed and keep the queen in our thoughts. All right, on guys. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon. I've got to bail out now. Don't forget to join us tomorrow night for Armageddon 2002. The link is already up on the channel. You can just go right over there and save it for tomorrow, and that will be a lot of fun. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday night, and I will look forward to hanging out with you guys tomorrow. Y'all take care. Peace.